It all started on a typical Saturday morning. My name is Lydia Fairchild, and I'm a biology and chemistry teacher at a high school. My life revolved around science, logical thinking, and the structured routine of teaching. Until that fateful day, I had never thought much about the realms beyond what science could explain. Life, death, spirituality, were things that seemed beyond my professional scope. I was skeptical about anything that wasn't tangible or rooted in scientific explanation. But on that autumn Saturday morning, everything changed for me. As usual, I went for my morning jog in the park near my home. The weather was cool, with autumn leaves crunching under my feet. It was a moment of serenity, where my mind felt clear, my body energized. Typically, I jog about 5 miles, but that day, something went wrong. After 2 miles, I suddenly felt a sharp, intense pain in my chest, unlike anything I had ever experienced before. At first, I thought perhaps I had pushed myself too hard, but within moments, the pain became excruciating. It felt as though my heart was being squeezed, and I couldn't breathe. My legs gave out beneath me, and I collapsed on the pavement. I remember hearing a jogger calling for help before everything around me went dark, and I lost consciousness. The next moment, I found myself in an entirely different place, not physically, but spiritually. I no longer felt the crushing pain, nor the chaos surrounding my unconscious body. Instead, I felt peace, calmness, and silence all around me. It took me a moment to realize that I was floating above the ground, looking down at my own body, which was surrounded by paramedics. I could see them trying to revive me with a defibrillator, but I felt detached from the scene, almost as if I were an observer rather than a participant. Surprisingly, there was no fear or panic, only a deep sense of serenity. I felt weightless, as though I had been freed from all burdens. As I rose higher above my physical body, I noticed the world around me began to glow, growing brighter with each passing second. Ahead of me, I saw a tunnel of radiant, warm light. I was moving towards it, quickly but smoothly, and yet I wasn't afraid. It felt like I was returning to a place I had always known, like coming home after a long journey. The light surrounding me was dazzling, almost blinding, yet it didn't hurt my eyes. It was filled with warmth and love so pure and intense that it made me feel as though I was cradled in its embrace. It was as though I was entering a new dimension, a realm far beyond anything my scientific mind had ever considered possible. When I emerged from the tunnel, I found myself in a world that was impossibly beautiful. It's hard to describe the colors I saw because they were unlike anything on Earth, vivid and vibrant, yet serene. There were rolling hills, meadows covered in brilliant flowers, shimmering rivers, and towering mountains in the distance. Every part of this new world seemed to be alive with energy and light. But what struck me most was the overwhelming sense of love and belonging. In this place, there was no pain, no fear, and no sorrow, only peace. I felt as though I was finally where I was always meant to be, in a realm beyond the limitations of human understanding. Then, I noticed several figures approaching me. They didn't have distinct physical forms, but they were beings of light. Their presence filled me with an even deeper sense of calm and happiness. Somehow, I knew they were my ancestors, family members who had passed on before me. They greeted me without words, transmitting their love and pride directly to my soul. It was a form of communication unlike anything I'd ever experienced, pure, wordless understanding. And then, from the brilliant light, a figure stepped forward, more radiant than any other. I knew instantly who it was, without needing an introduction: Jesus. His presence was unlike anything I had ever felt before. It was powerful, yet soft, full of compassion and unconditional love. As he came closer, all my doubts, fears, and anxieties melted away. In his gaze, I saw everything: forgiveness, peace, understanding, and love beyond anything humanly imaginable. He didn't need to say anything, yet I knew that he was offering me an experience, something transformative. Then, he spoke, his voice resonating deep within me. "Lydia, my child," he said gently, "I have much to show you. Are you ready to understand the true power of the Holy Spirit in a believer's life?" With no hesitation, I nodded. How could I possibly refuse such a gift? In his presence, I felt completely safe, loved, and ready to receive whatever wisdom he wanted to share. Jesus began to show me scenes from my life, almost like watching a movie. I saw moments I had long forgotten, both the joyful and the painful ones. But what made this experience so profound was that there was no judgment. Every scene was shown with love, compassion, and understanding. Even my mistakes were viewed as opportunities for growth. I could see how even the smallest actions, gestures of kindness, had a ripple effect on the lives of others. Similarly, I could feel the pain of those I had hurt, even unintentionally. It was during this life review that I realized how interconnected we all are, how our actions influence others in ways we may never fully understand while on earth. But it was not just about the mistakes, it was also about growth. Jesus showed me that every trial, every failure, had led to some form of personal development. It was through the challenges that I had become stronger, more compassionate, more understanding. After reviewing my life, Jesus led me to another part of this realm, a place that looked like a vast, endless library. The shelves reached beyond what I could see, filled with books containing the knowledge of the universe. Jesus explained that I was free to explore and learn anything I wished to know. I found myself drawn to a particular book that seemed to shine brighter than the others. When I opened it, I realized it was about the nature of God and Jesus' life on earth. A question that I had carried with me for years surfaced. I had always wondered, if Jesus is God, why did he pray to God while on earth? I turned to him and asked the question directly. His response was simple yet profound. He explained that when he came to earth, he voluntarily chose to limit certain aspects of his divine nature so that he could fully experience human life, including the need for prayer. Prayer is not just asking for things, he explained. It is about maintaining a relationship with God the Father, aligning with his will, and participating in his work on earth. He continued to show me how prayer is a powerful tool that can shape reality. I saw visions of prayers rising from earth, like beams of light intersecting with one another, creating a beautiful tapestry in the heavens. Some prayers were answered immediately, while others set off chains of events that would take time to unfold. Through this, I learned that prayer is not just a request for help but a co-creative process with God. Every prayer, whether spoken in times of joy or desperation, carries the potential to bring about change, not just in the individual but in the world around them. Jesus emphasized that prayers grounded in love and faith have the power to transform lives and situations in ways we may not always understand. Before I returned to my physical body, Jesus told me something that resonated deeply. He said, "Lydia, your time is not over. You have a mission to fulfill on earth. There are many who need to hear your story, people who are lost, in pain, or doubting. Your experience can give them hope." As he spoke, I saw glimpses of the people I could help, a teenager on the brink of suicide, a grieving widow, and even an atheist whose heart would soften upon hearing my testimony. I understood then that my near-death experience wasn't just for me, it was meant to be shared, to bring hope and healing to others. When I was back in my body, the transition was jarring. I went from feeling weightless and loved to being painfully aware of the physical discomfort that had returned. The paramedics and my family were gathered around me, their faces etched with relief. They had thought I was gone, but I had been given a second chance. Since that day, my entire perspective on life, death, and faith has changed. I no longer fear death because I now know it's not the end but a transition to something greater. Every day I live with the awareness that our actions matter, that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that prayer can connect us with the divine in ways beyond comprehension. My mission now is clear. I share my experience with those who are struggling, to remind them that there is hope, there is love, and there is life beyond what we can see. My name is Anna, and I'm a 38-year-old software developer, living in a suburban neighborhood. Life for me had always been grounded in logic and reason, my daily routine centered around work, family, and the occasional hike in nature to unwind. I had never believed in things that couldn't be scientifically proven. Spirituality, the afterlife, or anything beyond the physical world wasn't something I gave much thought to. But one fateful day changed everything I thought I knew. It began like any ordinary day. I had woken up, gone through my morning routine, and decided to go on a short hike before diving into the usual weekend tasks. The air was crisp, and the sky was clear. I made my way through the familiar trails that I'd hiked countless times before. I was about 30 minutes into my walk when, suddenly, I felt an intense pain in my chest. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it was just fatigue or stress, but the pain quickly escalated, spreading through my entire chest and making it hard to breathe. Panic set in. I knew something was seriously wrong. My heart felt like it was being crushed, and I couldn't catch my breath. I stumbled, falling to the ground. My vision blurred, and all I could hear was the sound of my heart pounding. Then, everything went black. The next thing I knew, I was no longer on the ground. I found myself floating above my body, looking down at the scene unfolding below. There I was, lying on the forest floor, motionless. It was a surreal experience to see my own body from a distance. Strangely, I didn't feel scared or panicked anymore. Instead, there was a profound sense of calm that washed over me. I could see people rushing towards me from the nearby trail, someone was calling for help, but their voices seemed distant, almost muted. As I watched everything from this detached viewpoint, a bright light began to appear in the corner of my vision. I felt a gentle pull, as if something was guiding me towards it. Without resistance, I allowed myself to move toward the light. The moment I entered it, I was engulfed in warmth and love unlike anything I had ever known. It was as if every fear, every worry, every ounce of pain I had ever experienced melted away. This light was not just light, it was alive, filled with an overwhelming sense of peace and love that I couldn't begin to describe. As I moved deeper into the light, I found myself in a place that defied earthly explanation. It was a world filled with colors that I had never seen before, more vivid and brilliant than anything on earth. The air felt alive, buzzing with energy, and there was a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through everything. It felt like I had arrived in some sort of paradise, a place where time didn't exist, and everything was interconnected in a way that made perfect sense. Suddenly, I was not alone. Figures of light began to appear around me, their forms glowing softly, radiating a presence that felt familiar. Without any words spoken, I knew who they were. These were my ancestors, people who had passed long before me, and yet their essence was here, welcoming me. I could feel their love, their pride, and their acceptance flowing into me. Among these beings, one stood out more than the others, a figure bathed in an even brighter light. As the figure approached, I instinctively knew it was Jesus. His presence was powerful yet gentle, and the love emanating from him was beyond anything I had ever experienced. He smiled at me, and in that moment, I felt as though I was home. Jesus didn't need to speak for me to understand that he was here to guide me. But then he did speak, and his voice was like a melody, soothing and clear. "Anna, you are loved. You have always been loved. But there is something you must understand." He reached out his hand, and as I took it, we were suddenly transported to various moments from my life. It was like watching a movie, but I wasn't just seeing these moments, I was reliving them. Every emotion, every thought, and every action was crystal clear. What struck me the most was that I could feel not only my own emotions but also the emotions of the people around me. I could feel the impact my words and actions had on others. Both the positive and the negative. One scene, in particular, stood out. It was a small, seemingly insignificant moment from my childhood when I had spoken harshly to a friend. In that moment, I felt her hurt as deeply as if it were my own. It was an eye-opening experience to understand the ripple effect our actions can have on others, even when we don't realize it. Jesus gently guided me through each of these moments, and there was no judgment in his gaze, only love and understanding. "Everything you have experienced," he said, "has been an opportunity for growth, for learning, for becoming more aligned with love." He then showed me scenes of kindness I had forgotten about, small acts that had a profound effect on people's lives. One such scene was when I had helped a stranger, offering them a small gesture of kindness. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now I could see how that single act had changed their day, their outlook, and even had a ripple effect on others. Every act of love, no matter how small, creates waves in the universe, Jesus explained. Your purpose is to love, and through love, you will create change, not only in your own life but in the lives of others. We then arrived in what seemed like a vast library, filled with books that stretched endlessly into the horizon. Jesus explained that this was the repository of all knowledge, the collective wisdom of the universe. I could feel the weight of centuries of learning and experience in the air. Jesus encouraged me to ask any question I wanted, and I found myself wondering about the meaning of life, the nature of the universe, and the role of free will. Without needing to open a book, the answers flowed into my mind. I understood, in a way that words cannot fully convey, that life is a journey of growth, and that every soul has a purpose. Free will is the gift that allows us to choose love or fear, and through our choices, we shape our reality. But then, Jesus turned to me with a loving but serious expression. "Anna, it's not your time yet. You must return." I was flooded with a mix of emotions, relief at knowing that this beautiful place existed, but also a deep sadness that I would have to leave. Why? I asked, feeling the weight of the words. You still have a purpose to fulfill, Jesus said gently. There are people you must help, stories you must share. Through you, others will come to understand the love that awaits them. He showed me glimpses of people I would impact, friends, family members, and even strangers. He showed me how my story, my experience, could bring comfort, hope, and love to those who needed it most. As much as I wanted to stay, I knew he was right. My time in this heavenly realm had given me a new understanding of life, love, and purpose, and I felt a renewed sense of responsibility. With a final embrace, I felt myself being pulled back toward the tunnel of light. The transition back into my physical body was abrupt and jarring. One moment I was bathed in warmth and peace, and the next, I was gasping for air, feeling the intense pain in my chest once again. The paramedics were hovering over me, their faces filled with relief. I could hear the beeping of machines and the sound of sirens in the distance. I had returned to the world of the living, but I was forever changed. In the days and weeks that followed, I processed everything I had experienced. It took time to fully understand the depth of what I had seen, felt, and learned. My perspective on life had shifted dramatically. The things that once seemed important, material success, achievements, and accolades, now felt insignificant compared to the overwhelming message of love that I had been given. I began to live with more intention, focusing on my relationships, on kindness, and on being present in every moment. I no longer feared death because I knew it wasn't the end, but rather a transition to something far greater. Every day became an opportunity to spread love, to connect with others, and to fulfill the purpose that Jesus had shown me. Through this experience, I came to realize that life is not about the destination but the journey, and that the greatest journey of all is the one we take toward love.